You have deficient leaders and you have deficient employees.
Mm-hmm.
You can have either one. You can have a great leader with deficient employees that maybe shouldn't be working for you, so you make a change and get the right people. Or you have leadership that's deficient that has the right people that they're just not getting recognized and rewarded the right way, and they could be so much better.
On this episode of A Call to Leadership, our Business Monday Part 2 episode of this two-part series on pay for performance is in full swing. We're going to finalize our discussion on how we motivate people. Do we motivate them through just dollars and cents? Do we motivate them through our culture? What are the ways that we can help our people to rise above through different types of ways we pay them? Can't wait for you to listen in. I've got Sam Salah and Travis Revelle, my co-hosts, joining me, and let's kick it off.
Compensation is a big piece of culture. I mean, I kind of talked about it as two different things, but I mean, it all kind of feeds into the overall culture, you know? People will work less for a work environment they love being in. That's a fact.
It's a fact. It's a fact. 100%.
Yeah, it's a fact. So that should be an important piece of your vision and for what you have for your company is to create an amazing culture that people want to be at.
And that's where I think people need to, like, people who, kind of pick up on your point, Nate, they're listening to us right now and they're overwhelmed. They're like, holy crap. Yeah. How do I do this? Well, I would say the first thing you do is you work on your culture, right? That's the most important, right? Like, if you can pay people, like I said, you could pay me $500,000 a year to go dig ditches. I'm going to make it a week. Literally. Like, I'm going to make it a week. Like, I'm just not going to physically want to do that job, right? Or you could pay me $150,000 a year to sit here and talk on a podcast. I'm going to choose this job 10 out of 10 times because it's what I want to do, right? Understand that you're building a culture. It just starts with asking your employees, what would you change? Right? What does a good workplace look like?
And that's why creating culture, especially when you have multiple leaders involved with different leadership approaches and different perspectives on how a company should be ran. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's important in partnerships to have a synergy in that direction, right? And it's when you say culture to some people, it's almost like what does that mean exactly? Like, what do you mean by work culture? Like, we come in, we run this business, we do our jobs, we get, we produce results, we just want to make money, just like the very like shallow, mm-hmm. like part of being an entrepreneur. But then you start like talking about what we're talking about, which is culture and environment and leadership, which honestly, I feel like is more of a focus now than it used to be. Like, like people talk, like when we were coming up as entrepreneurs, I think we were natural leaders in a lot of ways, and there's natural leaders out there. But have you ever sat there and was like, all right, how can I be a better leader, and how am I going to apply myself and learn from other people to just step up to be this amazing leader that people want to work for, right?
Yep.
And, my team in my organization at Unwired, we all feel vested. We're all partners in this goal, in this, we all wake up every day trying to get to the next level. Our leadership is vested. They are invested in what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's rare. You know what I mean? That is a rare thing.
It is a rare thing. Yeah. A personal story. So, when I started I won't name companies or names, but started at a company, I was 22 years old. My boss at the time, good guy, right? Very highly educated. He's now the CEO of, Fortune 5 company. Mm-hmm. And incredibly large global company. His adage was he paid people just enough to not quit. Right? You pay them just enough so they don't quit.
That's not an old theory.
It's still pervasive today,
yeah.
Right? Like, I'm going to pay you just enough so that you quit. Now, that employee is not invested in your company, right? They don't feel a part of your company, right? I'm trading what my dream is, right? What's the minimum amount that I can trade my dream to just pay my bills, right? But in in this era, and we talk about this a lot, this change that we're in, you're looking at max employment across the country. Now, yeah, there are a lot of people who are not working, but they're not going to work, right? They're just not going to work, right?
It's
Their
not
workforce
because there's no jobs. It's more because they don't want to.
They don't want to work, right? Yeah. And you're not going to change that mentality, right? Like you're just not, right? Until they have to, right? And that's not something as an entrepreneur that we're going to change society and force people to work. So you have a limited workforce. How do you become a place that people want to work? Because there's a lot of options. If you're paying somebody $13-14 an hour, there's a lot of places right now that they can go make $16 an hour. And if they're not happy where you're working, they're taking that money. You know what I mean? Like they're taking that money. And so I think having a work culture, a strong performance-based incentives, right, of the organization, those two things go hand in hand with each other. And if you're not doing that, right, you may be getting by today, but you're literally $1 more an hour offer away from losing your people. Right?
Yeah, and if your employees leave you for $1 an hour, then you probably didn't create enough value for that dollar.
Well, that's it. Creating enough value for it. And I think that's where many organizations don't focus on our vision, our mission, and our values. Those three pieces that develop your culture. Because if you create a compelling enough vision that has a worthy cause, then people will be attracted to that. And so that's part of it. And then the logistical questions come up, right? Which is, how much is it going to pay? What are my incentives? How much time do I get off? What's the flexibility? What are the benefits, right? But it really starts with, is this a vision that is personal to me? Mm-hmm. And somebody might say, well, I have a construction company, or I'm in food services, or I'm in manufacturing. How could I even begin to have an incentivization based on a bigger vision because it's a widget? Well, that's the wrong attitude. Totally. It's totally the wrong attitude, because as soon as you have that attitude, you've already lost the fight of creating a worthy cause around whatever you do. And I always said this before, accounting is not sexy, right? But if you're in the love business because people are stressed out, it totally changes the environment. Because when people come in, they're like, we have problems. We don't like the IRS, right? Well, let's help you solve that problem and bring those stress levels down. So I don't care what kind of business it is. I think that's a cop-out.
It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
And if you shameless plug here, but if you really feel like that in your organization, please reach out to us, because I promise you I can define what you're doing and how in a larger instance you can pay somebody. Manufacturing, quality control, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's simple, right? I mean, gas station, right? What gas station are you going to go to? If it's some random mobile gas station or a Quick Trip, right? Where are you going?
The reason.
I'm going to Quick Trip. Mm-hmm. People are happy there, right? I get taken care of. The customer service is there. So no matter what, Nate, you pegged it, right? No matter what role you're in an organization, you're in sales. Whether you realize it or not, you're in sales. And no matter what organization you have, you're in customer service. Those are two things that just are what they are. Sales and customer service are there. And you can tie a compensation model into those. You can. And you know what? Like, I think you're going to start seeing a big press from a unionization standpoint, right? And I'm not pro-union or anti-union, right? But if you were taking care of your people, they're not gonna try to unionize on you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to happen. And so I think that when you look at a Starbucks, right, you look at, which is starting to see unionization, right? They're closing down stores. There's this struggle that's going on. But Starbucks revenue hasn't dropped. You know what I mean? like they're still selling a lot of coffee. 66% of the people on this panel went to Starbucks this morning and got a coffee. You know what I mean?
And if I didn't quit drinking coffee, I would have mine as well, right?
So it's just, there isn't an organization, company, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't have a sales and customer service aspect to it that you could compensate off of.
I can also attest, I think that you have people that pay their employees amazing, let's say the highest tier, but almost they're paying so much that they haven't been able to build performance-based incentives in, because they're paying at such a high rate that maybe they should have paid a little less and created a higher ceiling instead of just, because at the end of the day, we all know, I mean, especially from the background, let's just talk from a retail perspective. We always looked at the compensation, here's your base, but to get to this level of compensation, you're going to be you're going to be selling, right? I think what does happen sometimes is everybody's reacting to keep their people so much that and this has happened in the last year. You're paying people absolutely the most and that you've ever paid people. I can attest to that. People are telling me the same thing. This is what I'm hearing. I've never paid people like this before. Which is great, right? People are getting compensated for their jobs. The question is, if your P&L doesn't support more money, how are you going to pay people more money? So then the Fortune 500 company comes in, pays that more money, and takes that employee from that small business. So as a small business, what do you have to offer?
Well, and I think just throwing more money at it is also what people would consider it's the lazy way.
Well, again, your culture is what keeps people, is to me the major factor and what keeps people from leaving to work somewhere else.
Well, and I would add to that, people don't work for companies, they work for people.
Yeah. Correct.
Right? And so if you're because somebody in a large organization like a Chick-fil-A or any of these larger companies would say, or a Starbucks would say, it's us against them, right? They're a big corporation. They represent the shareholder values or the shareholder revenue and just increasing that value. And yeah, we're here. They talk the talk, but at the end of the day, I'm expendable. I'm just a number. And that's a real concern, because how do you then tie compensation at this larger level, not just a small organization, but at the larger level where it's actually authentic? And it's not just, well, here's what we're doing because a consulting firm said that this is the way we're going to increase productivity and retention. That's a real problem that a Starbucks is, and that's why you do have, the push toward unionization, because it's a voice. Now we have a collective voice because we need one. We have a problem. And so the question then arises, okay, guys, this makes sense on a small business level, but how do we translate that to a big business?
Right. Because you can move in a small business environment, you can move a lot quicker, which is an advantage. You don't have these, corporate layers that things have to go through. And how big companies are so hard to change, right? But a small business, you can change. You can change fast. And
in large part because the owner, right? You can usually have a conversation with the owner, right? Well, you've got a CEO. Now the question is, I think that the next question I would ask is, how then, if engagement with the leadership team or the CEO has an effect on your culture, right? Look at CEOs who are engaged in their culture. Look at an Elon Musk. At the time, of course, look at a Steve Jobs. Right? Look at CEOs. Well, I was talking about, I think on a previous episode, about the Home Depot CEO who is writing letters individually to employees, handwritten, ink, not not just a form letter, right? The engagement level increases that connection, because back to the question mark of even I think in some ways increasing performance compensation without the culture that cares about a person. In other words, the only reason why I'm giving you this additional compensation is because I don't want you to quit, right?
Right.
Just like your original leader. You've got to go beyond that.
You've got to understand what makes your people tick. Like, you just have to. And listen, it's not daunting, right? So whether you're in an organization of 1,000 people or you're in an organization of 3 people, it's literally having a conversation, right? Ask somebody.
Not everybody's going to work for you forever.
No.
At the end of the day,
right.
I mean,
and that's okay.
That's the expectation.
And that's the thing. Like, that's the thing. When people, like, your job as a leader, right, as an organization, is to grow your people, right? If they grow to a point to where they outgrow you, you did your job.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a bad thing. But I think that, right, like, have a conversation. And how hard is it to say, hey, Nate, so, I'm reviewing, your job duties and everything, and how's it going? Like, how's your job? Like, how's everything going? What can I help you with? But what motivates you? You know, I mean, that's something I ask on an interview question, right? I jump right to the front, right? When I'm interviewing somebody, I ask them straight up, what motivates you? What are you motivated by?
Yeah.
You know,
like a great first question.
What do you want?
Says it all.
Yeah. And the next question is, what do you want to be? Like when you're a kid, what did you want to be? Right? Like, so I can understand, right? Where is this person? Where are they coming from? Right? They wanted to be a firefighter. Why didn't you be a firefighter? You know what I mean? Like, I needed to make money. Okay, cool. So what motivates you? What do you do in your spare time? Like, I ask so few questions about the actual job itself, right? Because I want to understand who this individual is, right, in front of me. And if you haven't done that, okay, you can start today. You know, start having a conversation, right?
Yeah.
If you don't understand your people, if you don't understand what motivates your people, they're not just coming for a paycheck, right? They want to do more than that, but if that's all you're offering, you're a very, very, very one-sided organization.
You have deficient leaders and you have deficient employees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can have either one. You can have a very, a great leader with deficient employees that maybe shouldn't be working for you, so you make a change and get the right people, right? Or you have leadership that's deficient that has the right people that they're just not getting recognized and rewarded the right way, and they could be so much better, right? So, like you said, everyone's motivated differently, and getting to know them as a human being really enlightens you on what really drives them. So,
yeah, because they got bills to pay, right? I think one of the first question is compensation is an essential aspect of that, right? Absolutely. But when money's off the table, as has been said, what else is there that brings me joy in this organizational environment, right? Because if it's only money, and I'm glad you brought that up, then the highest bidder wins.
Highest bidder. Yep.
And that's not a game that you want to play because it's unsustainable.
Unsustainable, and especially for the entrepreneurs that we're probably talking to today. It's an unsustainable model.
Yeah. So there's got to be something else involved. The old pitch that Jobs gave to John Scully when he wooed him for a year, and the money was no object, right? Scully wasn't ready to move from Pepsi, and he sold him with one line: "Do you want to sell soda water the rest of your life? You want to come join me and change the world?"
That's a hell of an offer.
But that's how I believe the most resonant and effective way to build a culture. Like, let's change our little world, whatever it looks like. It doesn't have to be, the disruptive innovation of going to another planet. Like, let's change our world together. But you have to be bought in as a leader.
Absolutely, 100%.
You have to be the one that leads that charge authentically, transparently, and with the right measures and the right metrics to continue pushing that forward.
You cannot fake the funk when it comes to this. Like, you just can't. Like, people see through, and it actually is insulting, right? It's insulting when you have a leader stand up in front of you and try to sell you on some vision that damn well they don't believe in as well, right? You know it. You can see through it. But when you have somebody that actually gives a crap, they care about you as a person, they care about you as an employee, they care about the organization, you start to tie these things together, and people will go to war with you.
Yeah.
Like, they will go to war with you. That's the power that you have. And so compensation is an important part, because like you said, everybody needs to survive, right? We can't just live off of kumbaya, right? But once your bills are paid for, what are you doing? Right? You're trading time with the people you love the most in the world to go spend time with other people that are strangers. Why am I doing that? There has to be something more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this then brings us back to the compensation piece starts long before we even get to running the numbers. It starts with, what's our mission? What's our vision? What do we value? And then having the conversation with each individual who's possibly going to board our team to say, do we share in these places? Do we share that purpose? And then let's talk about how we can build these different pieces together to help you maximize your value, maximize your experience. But I preface that within the confines of these boundaries and borders. So if it goes outside of that, in other words, here's our macro structure, here's our micro structure. If that doesn't work for you in this position that's available, then I want to free you. If at some point later it no longer works for you, that's okay too. You don't want to have high turnover, certainly. But like you said, not everybody's meant to be with your company forever. And that's okay too.
Yeah, it's absolutely okay. But I think we almost think that that's like that. Like why would someone leave?
Yeah, I was paying them well, and I had all of I thought I had all the metrics just right.
It stinks to lose people, for sure. I mean, we've all been there. You know, it's never a fun experience. But, you know, people move on, and, you know, the ceiling cannot be the same for everybody.
No.
At the end of the day.
No, and you mentioned, but I want to come back to that. You mentioned the way you treat your organizational employees as partners. And you said, you know, we partner together. Back to your point, too. They won't ever see you as a partner unless you live up to that. Otherwise, they'll just see you as another person who owns a business, who talks the talk. Yeah, we're partners.
So I have I'm not going to say the name, but I have a specific employee text me yesterday. And just to let me know what a great job he's done the last few weeks and how he's been absolutely crushing it. And he's got my number, obviously. Can call me anytime. He's not in leadership or anything like that. But hey, just want to let you know I'm crushing it. I'm loving it. I'm loving where I'm at. You know.
How does that make you feel?
Just want to let you know. Make me feel great because he cares about. He cares that I know. He wants me to know.
Yeah.
Made your day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you know now that person wants recognition.
Yeah.
That person is
That's
motivated
a part of it.
by recognition. You know, on top
Right.
of money, that's a recognition standpoint. Yeah, I mean, there's no silver bullet in business, right? I mean, everything, and that's why we do these podcasts, different topics, but every topic, just like every employee in your organization has to play their role. Every topic we discuss leads to the other, right? They're all the magic sauce, whatever you want to call it, right? Of creating a good work environment. And the thing about it is like once you get it nailed in, it's going to change. 6 months later, it's going to change, and it's going to change. So this is not a one-time thing that you have, right? It's not a one-time conversation. This needs to be ongoing conversations because as those people start at 22 in your organization, fresh out of college, what motivates them is different at 30, is different at 35. And if you want to keep people, right, and it bothers if you're the person that, you know, takes as a personal insult when people leave your organization, then you need to be even more proactive about this, that you're continually meeting their needs, and vice versa, that employee needs to be continually meeting their expectations.
Yeah.
And it's just a give and take conversation that needs to be happening regularly.
And happening around with every member of your organization, and including especially your leadership team.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't have to necessarily be internal. It can be external, right? Have the conversation with your accountant. Have the conversation, you know, if you have an internal CFO, obviously they're going to be, you know, involved in that. Have the conversation with a mentor, a coach, right? Have the conversation with what we call mentors from afar, like listen to this podcast or having different types of individuals who can help you to form these plans and then vet them with your people. Don't just unroll something.
Absolutely.
That's like a recipe for disaster.
Approach,
yeah,
right?
it cannot be a top-down approach.
And I've got another thing. Go see what your competitors are doing. What are your competitors offering their employees? You know what I mean? Because you've got to understand what your industry standard is, and you don't want to be the low end of that spectrum, right? You want to be on the higher end of that spectrum. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're paying more money, but what does it look like to go, if you work at Quick Trip, what does it look like to go over and work at that locally owned mobile across the street? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it a better experience for you? It might be, right? But if you as a business owner don't understand your people, you don't understand your competition, and all you're focused on is your product, you are going to lose. Because once you're gone, what happens to the organization, right?
I think that if we focus on the highest priority needs of all of our stakeholders and work and create an organizational model from a compensation perspective that not only meets those but exceeds those, but most importantly explains the why and understands that this is what you need on a macro and a micro level, then we can create some cohesiveness and ultimately reach our goals.